TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi stresses the need to maintain resolve to remain true to Jerusalem's war objectives. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasizes that Israel will not leave the Philadelphi Corridor no matter what. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan asserts that Turkey would never turn its back on Jerusalem. Israel will not relent on any of its war objectives versus the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip and will continue to face any threat by all means necessary. Following a situation assessment at the IDF Central Command, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant emphasized Israel's resolve to confront any and all terror elements as terrorism, at the backdrop of Iranian efforts to flood Judea and Samaria with weaponry, munitions, and funds, repeatedly attempts to rear its ugly face.
The awakening of terrorism in Judea and Samaria is an issue that we need to be focused on at every moment. The process is an attack to prevent terrorism. This is the main story. And in fact, we mow the grass. The moment will also come when we will pull out the roots. That must be done. However, the awakening that comes with car bombs in Judea and Samaria, and also within the Green Line with IEDs, as well as shooting attacks everywhere, these are things that need to be put to an end. These terrorist organizations that call themselves by all kinds of names, in Noor al-Shams, or in Tulkarm, or in Farah, or in Jenin, these are things that should be wiped out. Every such terrorist should be eliminated. If he surrenders, then to arrest him. There is nothing else. Utilize all the forces, everyone who is needed, with all the strength.
Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi toured the central part of the enclave, during which he stressed to the deployed forces that Israel must not give up on any of the war goals. General Halevi continued by asserting that the IDF is continuing to defeat the military wing of Hamas and is doing everything possible to bring the hostages back alive. Earlier, during a news conference to the foreign press in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighted Israel's horror, sorrow, and rage over the heinous murder of 6 of its hostages by the Islamist Hamas terror group last week.
Israel is experiencing days of horror, sorrow, and rage. A week ago, we experienced such horror. Yesterday, I visited in Ashkelon the family of one of the hostages murdered in cold blood. A day earlier, I spoke to several of the families of these murdered hostages. It tears your heart out. I said to them that I'm sorry. I apologize that we didn't get them out. We worked so hard to get them. We were close, but we didn't. And they changed the torment. Our families worried about their loved ones, to families grieving for their fallen beloved. That sentiment I know, because I belong to that family, but it's a horror.
Netanyahu went on to stress the importance of the Philadelphi Corridor, which Hamas exploited since Israel withdrew from the Palestinian enclave in 2005 for the purpose of flooding the Gaza Strip with munitions and other terror-related equipment.
In 2005, Israel unilaterally disengaged from Gaza. It just went out. It took out everything. It took out the army. It stripped, uprooted communities, took out 10,000 people. The army left the Philadelphi Corridor. Here's what happened. This is Gaza after the disengagement. And Hamas now has a weapon smuggling operation nurtured by Iran, financed by Iran, supplied by Iran, delivered by Iran. And here's what happened. That Philadelphi Corridor became completely porous. The other borders controlled by us. But once this was perforated, even though the policy of Egypt was to prevent it, it didn't necessarily work. It didn't succeed. And this border, once we left our side of the Philadelphia Corridor, rockets went in, missiles went in, drones went in, ammo went in, weapons manufacturing equipment came in, tunnel drilling equipment came in. Once we got out, once we left the Philadelphia Corridor, Iran could carry out its plan to turn Gaza into a base, a terrorist enclave that would endanger not only the communities around it, but would endanger Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Beersheba, the entire country of Israel. It became a huge terrorist base because we left that corridor.
The Israeli premier went on to expand on the centrality of the Philadelphia Corridor to the arming of the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip, while further stressing that Jerusalem will remain resolute in its decision to maintain control over the strategic borderland.
It's a military, political, strategic question. And we make that decision. We're not going to leave. 42 days, we're there. I don't want to leave in order to come back in when I know that we didn't come back in, and it's not going to take another 24 years to come back in, and God knows what price we'll have, how many more massacres, how many more kidnappings, how many more hostages, how many more rapes. It's not going to happen. So people said, yeah, but if you stay, this will kill the deal. And I say, such a deal will kill us. And there won't be a deal that way.
It is important to know that Egyptian officials voiced anger over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's reinforced position to maintain a military presence along the Philadelphia Corridor. Among others, according to Mustafa Bakri, a member of the Egyptian House of Representatives, he denounced the idea as an attack on Egyptian sovereignty and a violation of the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, and urged President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to wield Egypt's military might to prevent what he claimed to be an Israeli scheme. Meanwhile, in Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan hosted his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, for the first time since the latter assumed office in 2013. During the course of their talks, Erdogan and Sisi insisted that both Ankara and Cairo were of one mind vis-à-vis the Gaza Strip.
From this viewpoint, I discussed with President Erdogan ways to liaise and work together to contribute in thwarting to regional crises led by dealing with the humanitarian crisis that our Palestinian brothers in Gaza are facing, in an unprecedented catastrophe that has been going on for almost a year, where it is important to highlight the unity in Egypt and Turkey's position regarding the demand for an immediate ceasefire and our refusal of the current Israeli escalation in the West Bank.
The two heads of state further discussed matters related to Libya, where both countries are backing opposing forces, as well as matters related to the Horn of Africa, where Turkey has increasingly bolstered its military presence over the past several years, and Egypt has similarly recently increased its military footprint by signing separate military accords with both the governments of Sudan as well as Somalia.
We also exchanged our viewpoints on the Libyan crisis and agreed on holding discussions between our respective institutions to achieve security and political stability in Libya, reassuring the importance of turning the page on this extended crisis by having the presidential and parliamentary elections at the same time, and the expulsion of illegal foreign forces and mercenaries from the country. We also discussed in detail the situation in the African Horn, especially in Somalia, where we agreed on the importance of maintaining the unity of Somalia and its sovereignty and territorial security against the threats they face.
It's worth highlighting that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan addressed Turkey's Army War College commencement and flag handover ceremony last week, during the course of which he proclaimed his intention to further broaden his country's military footprint around the globe.
We have not and will not give in to those trying to confine us to shallow waters. We will think Turkey-centered, but we will keep our vision broad enough to encompass the world. From Syria to northern Iraq, and from Libya to Somalia, our armed forces honorably fulfill their duties everywhere they are tasked.
President Erdogan went on to declare that Turkey could never turn its back on Jerusalem, where the Ottoman Empire had ruled for 4 centuries after conquering it from the Egyptian Mamluks in 1517 AD and ultimately yielding it to the British Empire, to include forces from the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and India in 1917.
How can we turn our backs on Jerusalem, where our forefathers ruled in peace, tranquility, and prosperity for 4 centuries? How can we turn a blind eye to the land of Palestine, where Gazi Mustafa Kemal Ataturk fought to keep the enemy from reaching it? How can we turn a deaf ear to the cries of our Palestinian brothers who have been subjected to genocide by Israel for 11 months? Who can separate Istanbul and Holy Jerusalem?
Kim ayırabilir?
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. In light of the fact that TV7 Israel is 100% reliant on donations for all of our programs, I would like to ask you, especially if you're a regular viewer, to support our productions with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I'd like to encourage you as ever, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our upcoming TV7 Israel updates. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.